How's it going, everybody? Dave and I are going to be talking about Ikigai. What is that word? We're going to be talking about the ins and outs of this word and how it applies to you. More importantly, how you're able to know what to do in future situations. Also, how to be happy and win at everything that you do. Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. I am coming off of watching The Mighty Ducks, Quack Quack, off of
the Netflix deal?
The new series, yes.
Is it good?
I'm a huge fan of The Mighty Ducks. It could have been the worst thing ever. I'd still watch the whole thing.
Did they bring back old characters?
Oh, yeah. Gordon Bombay, the Mighty Duck man himself.
I knew Bombay was in it.
Yes.
But were the other people in it?
It's only one episode so far.
Oh.
But it's really interesting. Like, Disney's going down this route of making fun of travel sports parents, which was, it was like, I was kind of just like watching. I was like, man, that kind of sucks. But at the same time, some of it is true.
Yeah. No, I don't really want to watch though.
No, but it's good. It's good so far.
Was it like the adult version of the Mighty Ducks? Like now they're all like accountants and bankers, but they still play street hockey on the weekends? Or
No,
what is it?
Mighty Ducks is the bring back Kenan Thompson, and he's on SNL.
It's knuckle puck time.
By the way, did you see like old pictures of them, like last year when they were making the announcement that they're?
It was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool. I mean,
you could tell they couldn't ice skate though.
What?
You could tell they couldn't ice skate.
Oh no,
It's been like,
of course.
yeah.
I mean, I can't, so I can't hate on them. So,
But every time I think of like Mighty Ducks, Will Ferrell's Emilio Estevez comes into play.
Emilio,
I was like, Emilio, the Mighty Duck man himself. Night at the Roxbury. Yes, that's the movie.
Yes, little head nod.
But the Mighty Ducks is now a world powerhouse club, and they are
show. Got it.
Yep, talking about the show. But
Got
they're
it.
a world class club, and they're the big giant. And now they cut one of the kids, and the kid's mom got really pissed off, and now she's starting her own team.
Haven't heard that before.
Yeah, but it's really good. Like Gordon Bombay had a really good line. He was like, "Oh, you just got pissed off, so you're gonna make your own team, eh?" and she's like, "Wait, what?" And he basically was like a sensei and saying, "It's not about that. It's about providing for the players so they're able to have fun." I can go all on board on that. And I retweeted one of Driveline's. I forgot who the guy's name. I think his name's Devin.
I saw it. Yeah.
Oh, dude, he had an awesome post where he was talking about recreational players, and he was saying, hey, the recreational players have not been playing for almost a year because Little League cut themselves out. And then all the, obviously the associations, some of them associations here cut their leagues completely.
Yep.
And he just had a really good post on hey, this is about fun. This is what it should be. This is a game. And so don't be so critical if they're not able to be at the level that they're supposed to be at when they're 10 or 11 years old. So if they were a 9U and then they missed their 10U and they're now 11, just understand that they're probably backtracked to back to 9U type of skill level.
It's crazy to think about. I was having a couple conversations with some of our coaches out in California yesterday, and I mean, they haven't played in a year and a half to 2 years. I mean, think about what that's done. And now I didn't know that, but I knew that Little League had basically shut down for about a year and a half, and I knew that same with Babe Ruth and I believe Cal Ripken leagues, and basically what I guess would be considered in a lot of worlds as rec or lower baseball, but those kids need a place to play. That's what I played growing up. I played church league baseball and local association baseball. What are they going to do?
I don't know. And we talked about how good junior college baseball is going to be and how good 4-year college baseball is going to be in the next 3-4 years. But then no one thinks about that dividing line where it's just playing the game as much as you possibly can and gathering skills up by just playing and then learning life skills. There's a dividing line. I think it's at that, I would say 11, 12U age range. And if they didn't play that year, they're going to be trying to play catch up. So I think we're going to have this immediate boost of just unbelievable talent. And then we're going to hit this kink where there's going to be some things that we're going to have to explain and go more fundamentals rather than going into like deep dive conversations of tunneling pitches or pitch location, trying to bait pitchers into throwing certain pitches. Like we're not going to be able to have those conversations at a higher like 17U level, 18U level. We're going to have to go back into basic fundamentals.
Yeah. I mean, I know this isn't on our topic, but what do you think like is going to happen for like entry-level baseball players, like just beginning? Do you think that's going to change?
I don't think that's going to change. I don't like 5U, 6U.
I mean, just in generalities, if like all those like what you would consider like entry-level baseball leagues.
Maybe like game adoption is going to hit like a problem, but then all other sports are having that issue too. Except I could see basketball having a good boost because it's almost like a one-player sport when you're by yourself. Like it's still entertaining. But like baseball, you have to be pretty creative to make it a one-player type of situation.
Yeah.
You need at least 2 or 3 players to like really make a game out of it. So I don't know.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. I think obviously video games exploded, esports exploded.
I was just gonna say that.
Just everything online has exploded. Like when we talked about the metaverse just a little bit with Sahil Bloom.
You got my mind real scared with that one.
I'm excited for it. I don't get why
Tell
you're
people
so,
what the metaverse
you're
is.
so feared by it.
Tell people what it is.
Metaverse is the epitome of living in a virtual world. So it's going to start with AR, augmented reality, and then it's going to move into virtual reality. They're both working at the same time, but it seems like augmented reality is going to be a real thing. Like Adobe came out. If you don't know what Adobe is, if you've ever worked with PDF editors, you've worked with an Adobe product. Mm-hmm. But Adobe is also for a lot of creatives. That's what I create this podcast on. So Premiere Pro, Audition, and I also use Adobe Illustrator. So basically just creative tools. Well, Adobe came out with this. They have their meeting in 2019. I think that was the last time they had it. And they started talking about how creators can create things that are augmented reality for people when they start wearing like glasses, and the phone will go away. It'll be more of like Google Glasses came out, but it's going to go more into that. So you just put on your glasses, and I showed Dave this, and he was just like, what is going on? And you can like literally click on certain things with your fingers, and the glasses can basically sense motion.
I envision like Tony Stark, Iron Man, like
that's exactly what it is. If you've ever seen Ready Player One, that's the metaverse times 10. Like I don't think it's going to get to that point where like the world's just like destroyed, but I think it's going to be where we're going to have meetings online. DJs are already having concerts in virtual reality worlds. That's actually happening right now. So
scary, dude.
Yeah, obviously.
I know you're like all in on it and excited, but that is
obviously if you everyone's heard of NFTs. SNL just did a skit on it. So if you haven't heard NFTs, you're living under a rock right now.
I haven't heard of NFTs.
Yep, but like that's like the DJs would be holding a party, and there'd be NFTs for bid, and like people could bid on these NFTs.
That's crazy.
Yep. And then everything was everything was transacted in not like USD. It was on like with cryptocurrencies.
I don't know what this world's going to look like in 20 years. I just hope that I can still podcast.
And our podcast has just literally gone in a whole different direction into a tech podcast, a futurist podcast, which, by the way, I don't understand when someone puts that like futurist in their bio. I don't understand that.
That they're excited about the future.
It's just like
they're
living in the future constantly. Yeah. I would just get like my mind would just blow up. I have to live in the present. I can't just live completely in the future.
It's cool to be excited about the future, but yeah, definitely not living there.
Yeah, I don't think I could write.
Always just thinking about it. Like,
yeah, I don't think
what's next.
Yeah, I don't think I could write about it because it's one of those things where I would never enjoy the moment that I'm in.
Right. Oh, no. And a lot of people don't. But.
Yeah, but hey, that's kind of where we're going with this topic is Ikigai.
Explain.
So I'm just thinking about the listener on the other end. Like, bro, I'm about to turn this off. Yeah. The Spiker just talked about the metaverse, and now we're talking about this Ikigai. Actually, Ikigai is an old term. It's Japanese, from Okinawa, Japan. And anytime you think of Okinawa, Japan, what do you think of?
The bomb.
Yeah, World War II. Yeah. If you've ever Googled Okinawa, oh, beautiful. It's like Hawaii. Very beautiful, white beaches, like rolling tide waves coming in. But it's also the place where it has the most 100-year-olds in the population.
Well, fun fact.
Yeah. You didn't know I was going to drop that little bomb there.
Did not.
But anyways, we had Sahil Bloom on the podcast, and
Awesome podcast, by the way.
I'm wishing I would have asked the question. I'm wishing I would have asked the question. I was like, what are you working on right now? And it seems like right now I'm on the same wavelength as this dude, because I'm like, I'm helping my wife out, and we're having these intense conversations. And then he just throws down this gem of a tweet the day after we interview him, and he tweets out a compass. Photo was a compass, and there was a word on there that I had no idea how to pronounce. I literally looked at it. I was like, Ikigai, and I had no idea how to pronounce it. I had to literally, you can't Google Ikigai and figure out how to pronounce it. For whatever reason, it's hard.
Don't give it enunciation.
Yeah, it doesn't give it enunciation. So I had to look up some YouTube videos and figure out how to pronounce the word. And again, like I said, Iki means reason, Gai means being. If you think of karate, and I'm taking this off of a guy who had a YouTube video on Ikigai, really good YouTube video. It was a TED Talk.
Is actually two words in Japanese, kara, which means empty, and te, which means hand. So it literally translates to empty hand. Now, in 1609...
So, Danielson. But yeah, so this guy had a really good talk on this subject, and a lot of the things that I'm mentioning is going to be from him. And right now I'm just struggling to switch accounts and figure out where I watch this thing. But
just give a synopsis.
We get in a state of not knowing what to do next. We get into a position where we follow what we're good at, which is the correct following.
It's a decent start.
Yes. And then we get to a point where we get burned out or we get stuck. And we don't have this North Star, this guiding light. And it's something that you need to continually think about. We don't have the conversation early enough. That's where I'm getting at. 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old. Sahil Bloom had a really good point on our podcast, and he referenced Kevin Hart. One thing that Kevin Hart does is he starts very small. He'll say, "Hey, Burger King, what is that?"
Talking to his kids.
Yeah,
talking to his kid on a drive.
Yeah, what does Burger King do? Oh, they make hamburgers. All right, what does Office Depot do? Oh, they have office supplies and they sell it to their customers. Like starting super small, right? And he'll point out, oh, what does this person do? Oh, they're a baseball player. What does the baseball player do? Oh,
why is that relevant?
He
why
entertains.
Does it help people?
Yeah. Why is it relevant? Why does it help people? What joy does he get out of it? Right.
Yep.
And that's the whole premise of Ikigai. And one player that I always like to think about is Colby Rasmus. Ooh. Do you remember Colby Rasmus?
Yeah,
Star Cardinals outfielder that was just an absolute stud. He hated baseball.
That's what I heard.
It wasn't a hate. I think it was more of a dislike. It felt like he was burnt out.
I feel like I don't know him, obviously, but I think he would have said, I have to go to work, right?
Yep.
I had to go play today.
Yep. And I forgot who told me this. I think we had him at a camp one time, and someone asked him, like, oh, man, it must be great to play baseball every day. He's like, well, I'm just good at it.
Yeah.
And he in one of his contracts for the Houston Astros, I think one of his contracts was like Houston Astros were begging him to come back. It was right before the Astros got really good, and he was their star. He was one of their main players, and they're begging him to come back. And he's like, I'll just sign a 1-year contract. The guy is not old. He was young.
Yeah, he's like 30.
Yeah, he was like 30, and they had to beg him to come back to the club. I kept on thinking about, like, man, that's like the best job ever, right? Everyone thinks, oh, big leagues. That is the best job you could ever have. You're getting paid the big bucks. You're getting paid millions, and you just literally wake up every day and play a game. I'll tell you right now from a professional standpoint, and this was not in my Ikigai, and we're going to get into this. I did not enjoy professional baseball one bit. There were some aspects I loved about it, but I did not enjoy the grind at all. I didn't like the concept of it. I felt like I was a caged animal. I felt like they literally just rolled me out and I would go play and then they'd roll me back in and then come back out and come back in.
Next day and the
next day. Like I felt like I had no control over my life. Now, that's me. If you talk to Luke Voigt, who that guy lives, breathes baseball. That dude just loves competition, wants to compete. He probably has no inkling of the thought of, I feel like a caged animal. He's just riding high. He's always in that flow state, which is super important. And he probably lives off of entertaining people. That he's in his Ikigai.
He's in his element. Yeah.
He's in his element, right? Now, what is this whole thing of Ikigai? Now, you can't see this. If you're watching the YouTube video, I'm going to post up the graphic, but it's a Venn diagram. Going back to your 5th grade days, a Venn diagram is basically circles cross-sectioning each other, and you have words inside of those different elements of that circle. This Venn diagram is 4 different circles. And in those circles, you have, on the top one, you have what you love. On the right, you have what the world needs. On the bottom, you have what you can be paid for. And on the left, you have what you are good at. It kind of looks like a compass, doesn't it? Yes. And because, again, there's a lot of questions surrounding each of those topics, because when I first read it, the first thing that my eyes went to what you love. Okay. Where'd your eyes go to?
Probably what you can get paid for.
What you can get paid for, right? Each person's going to look in a different direction. And I kept on thinking about like what you love. That's such a confusing term. Love. Love can mean so many different things. Like I remember in high school, a girl would always, it was so annoying, but she was like, "Oh, I love you with a lowercase L. I love you with an uppercase L." I'm like, what the hell does that mean? She's like, "Well, love is like a uppercase L. It's love. Like I love you." And then like lowercase L is like, I just love you. I'm like, I have no idea.
Listen,
I have no idea.
Let's go.
Shannon, I'm out of here. But anyway, and that's what I'm getting at. And what you love could mean passion. It could mean your mission. But for me, it's you being in your flow state. It's you. And this goes back to the guy's conversation on YouTube, which is I'm in a flow state. I'm in that state where I'm just dialed in, focused in. Like, have you ever met somebody that is just completely dialed in? You try to have a conversation with them and like they give you really short answers and they're just locked in.
Oh yeah. 100%.
That's flow. That person is in absolute flow. When you go to a major league game and you're trying to get the attention of the player and they won't recognize you.
Kind of call it tunnel vision.
Yeah, they're tunneled in. That's their flow. And then some guys' flow could be completely different, where they're such an entertainer that they'll, like Donaldson's like this. He'll give fist bumps. Jose Bautista, he'll talk trash to the fans. They're in their flow state. Each person has their own different set of flow. That's, for me, when you try to figure out what you want to do, you have to figure out how you can get into your flow state. For me, I'm just locked in, totally engulfed into, like Shondi hates it. Like she'll be watching a movie and I'll just be typing up and I'll be doing a graphic and she's just like, "You're not even watching." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm watching. The guy did that." It's like, it's a girl. Oh, sorry.
Well, he's doing something.
He's doing something up there. He's doing something up there. So we're going to get into passion and mission, and it seems like social media is all about, you got to find your passion.
Yeah.
You just got to do it. Do what you love. It's always those big old conversations, right? That conversation started. Grant Cardone's all about that. Gary Vaynerchuk's about that. God love him. Now, what the world needs. We had the conversation before we put on the mics, and you had, what was your analogy? Accountant?
Oh yeah, what we were talking about, like I was trying to like look at this diagram and basically like, okay, so let's say I'm an accountant and I absolutely hate my job, but I'm really, really good at it and I make a lot of money. So like we were kind of going back and forth. I was like, well, okay, if I'm an accountant, I hate my job, I'm getting paid for it, right? Pretty good at it. I'm good with numbers. Hate it, so I don't love it. But doesn't the world need accountants is what I said to you?
Yes.
And you said...
And I said, yes, it's part of that. If we look at the Venn diagram, there's that cross section. It's just a little sliver of it.
It's like the world needs it.
The world needs it.
Do you need it?
But are you able to provide the right resources for the world on that specific skill set? It could be, a little bit. Like, that's it. But that's not your Ikigai. You're not totally in. You're close, but you're not totally there. Mm-hmm. And let's go with what you're good at first, and then we'll go back to what the world needs. But like, what you're good at is not necessarily, yes, I am good at this one thing. Like me, I was really good at baseball, right? Mm-hmm. You were really good at baseball. Mm-hmm. That is something that we can continue doing. But it's not necessarily that skill set. It's more of what are you good at and what can you build on top of? Mm-hmm. So for me, I was creative. I didn't know that I was creative. I would do little side projects in high school. Like I would mess around with Premiere Pro and just I would do all the walk-up music for our football program and then also our baseball team. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really realize you can actually.
You didn't realize that was a skill.
I didn't realize that was a skill. I was creative and I love film. I would study film. I took a class in college that was an elective. You know how you have those blow-off classes? Yep. Well, I ended up choosing this film class. It was a writing intensive class, and I'm in this class with like all these different people, and I'm
that
just like,
are really studying it.
It's really studying it. I'm like looking around, and they're like, "Oh, what's your major?" I was like,
Economics.
Economics. They go. I was like, "What's your major?" She's like, "Oh, art." All right, okay. Philosophy. It's like sweet. People didn't look anything like me. But I enjoyed that class so much, and I got into film. And what do I do for the Tigers?
You're our creator.
I create, right? Everything. So when I got into the workforce, I started in sales. I started in managing teams. I started in coaching. I enjoyed those things. But the thing that I got back to was creativity. Mm-hmm. And I was not very good. If you want to see my first work, this is why I love keeping up my work on the internet. I don't delete much. There's certain things I do delete, but there's other things that are out there that I leave out there for a reference for myself, but also for someone else that has this conversation with me like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be any good at this. And I was like, bro, look at what I created first. It sucked. Mm-hmm. It's bad.
But you were passionate about it.
Yeah.
You were passionate about learning.
Yeah, it's super bad. If you go back to one thing that I'm thinking about doing this upcoming summer is we talked about it, vlogging. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back and do vlogging, and the first vlogs that I ever did was with Tournament Guy. And some of those Tournament Guy vlogs are not very good. The edits are very harsh. The storyline's not really there. So anyways, just understand that like what you're good at is not necessarily like, yeah, you might be really good with numbers, but is that something that you can build on top of? Like, are you really passionate about to keep learning that and keep building and keep growing? If not, that's a nice thing to have. It's good to have in your back pocket. You could probably apply those things in your Ikigai that you find out, but let's not just make it a complete profession.
Well, I think the big picture idea here as we go through all this is, at least on my end, you can have a couple of these, based on what you're doing today, right? And maybe you have a good life, right? And you're somewhat happy. You're pretty happy at times, like. But what if you had all four? What if you took the time to ask yourself, like, what if you're a high school kid? Like, we'll talk about this topic here in a second, but what if you're a high school kid thinking about what you want to do? Where you want to go? Do I want to go to school? What am I passionate about? Like thinking about if I could find something where I can literally get all four of these, what I love, what the world needs, what I can be paid for, and what I'm really good at. If I can find that, think about the level of happiness that I can achieve while being successful well fulfilling a need and helping people and doing it all in what I love. Like that is the ultimate type of situation that I think that a lot of people struggle for. I think that a lot of people just don't think is even achievable or out there. And that's something that, like we talked about, is for sure not talked about at a young age. Like definitely that conversation doesn't happen often.
And I don't want it to be...
I don't think it's a fault to anyone.
And I've never understood like I feel like it's a cop-out. And again, that's my personal opinion. You might not agree with me, but they're like, oh, they're just kids. Yeah, I get it. Like, we're not talking about what you're going to do for the next 60 years. Like, that's absurd. Don't like put that back on me like, oh, they're just kids. That's absurd. Yeah, I get it. I know. But what happens if you make it a game? What happens if you make it into a situation where it's like Kevin Hart, where you explain certain things, like the curiosity, where what does Burger King do? Oh, they make hamburgers.
I think if I remember right, he didn't even ask him that. He said, "All right, we're just going to pick a different business every car ride."
Yeah,
it could be a jump house. It could be whatever they see next, and then they just start talking.
Yep.
It's not like he's sitting there. And that's the simplicity to this that I really enjoyed in our conversation with Sahil. It's a simplicity factor that is important in that example. He's not trying to be some professor sitting up on his high horse telling them everything that he's known and found out about the world. He's literally trying to see what they see through their eyes and then give them little tidbits. Just give them a little bit of water. Watch that plant grow. And that's the way I would approach this conversation with them.
Yeah, it'd be like similar. A great metaphor would be if I'm trying to garden, I just douse the whole thing with water.
Yeah,
of course. Like, don't put that back on me where they're just kids. Of
drown
course,
the
I'm not.
plants.
I'm not a dumb gardener. I'm not going to throw the whole bucket into the plant. Of course not. But what I want to do is I'm going to introduce a word or a thought. Like, I love when in lessons. And I have a player that asks a lot of questions. I had a 9-year-old. You saw him
yesterday, right?
That dude asked so many questions.
Yeah, well, he was so green to the sport, which was so cool.
Yeah.
We don't often get those.
And just to tell you how green he was, he came in with jeans and a shirt. And his dad, I God love him. He's like, man, I just want to let you know, he came from school because he knew that he wasn't dressed appropriately. And I said, hey, no worries. I learned a lot about him when I said, hey, Antonio, how's it going? And he said, hey, Spiker, how are you today? I was like, holy cow, this is going to be the best lesson ever. And he just asked questions constantly.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is that when I would talk to him, I was like, hey, what's your glove supposed to do? Just giving him that thought. And he ran with it. That's the whole thing. Even my older guys, I was like, hey, where was that pitch? Outside. Well, what outside? Outside? Like, how close outside? How many inches? Getting him to think that way, because then they start building those neurons, and they're like, oh, I see where he's going with this. He's going a little bit more detailed.
Yep.
And that's what I love about the Burger King thing with Kevin Hart, is that he says, hey, what does Burger King do? Oh, they make hamburgers. What are they good at? They provide a need. Food for the world. What are they good at? They make hamburgers. How do they get paid? They get paid by cooking hamburgers, right? They have a stand. They have a brick and mortar. Why do they do it? Because they love providing
a service.
That's huge. You didn't go through this whole thing like, okay, the things that you need to be doing. You need to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, teacher's okay. And then also, you're going to get paid $300,000, and then also you're going to provide this service. That's a boring conversation that's going to get people shut out, and they're not going to figure out what their Ikigai is. That's the whole point, because each person's different. Yeah, you can manufacture somebody. The Russians proved that with tennis.
Right.
They proved that with the Olympics. You can definitely produce and manufacture people, but those people were miserable. Just watch The Miracle. Those guys in the red jerseys looked so miserable.
But they were good at hockey.
They were very good at hockey. They can flat out hit a slap shot, right? It's having that. It's hard to describe. it's keeping the conversation open for you're playing the game of 20 years, not we're gonna
It's a long
figure this out today.
Well, I do think it's too, like, when you're having this conversation with younger people, whether that's a youth or a high school aged person, it's not necessarily, again, the beautiful thing about that Kevin Hart example, it's not that he's pushing his ideas on there. It's not his life. It's theirs, right? And so he's not trying to force feed them information and say, this is what you have to do. This is what the world says you need to do. This is what, you have to go play this baseball level. You have to do this. You have to be this successful. It's literally just asking questions and seeing where the conversation goes based on their answers. And I think that sometimes if you just approached it with Ikigai and this situation and this diagram, who knows where those conversations go? I mean, how cool of a path could that take? Like I might be talking to you about it and having known you for the amount of time that I have, our conversation might go in a totally different response because I don't know exactly what you're totally passionate about all the time. I mean, who knows where that conversation goes, which is interesting because not a lot of people take the time to do that. And not even with yourself, not even self-reflective thoughts. Like, this doesn't have to be a one-on-one conversation with someone else. This could be a self-reflective conversation with yourself. Like, literally just sitting down one day and saying, man, this is what I am.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering, like, what happens if my kid doesn't even talk? Like, I try to talk to him, but he just sits there and just he's always on his phone. He's always just sitting there, just completely zoned out. I'll try to start a conversation. He won't open the conversation up, and I've tried everything. They're listening. Mm-hmm. They're definitely listening. I always viewed the car as like car therapy. Mm-hmm. It seemed like I would never talk. When I got to about middle school, I never talked to my dad like about certain things. It's normal, right?
How's your day? Good.
Yeah, how's your day? Good. And then he would just poke fun of that good, like, oh, what's good? Like, well, it's good. I don't know what good is.
It was good.
It was good.
It was good.
It was really good. Well, and then you go like, what's really good? He's like, well, it's just stop. Just stop. And then it would open me up. He got the conversation started, and then he would pick on and be like, so how did football practice go? And then I would start talking about football practice, right? So he would just make this whole joke about it and just kept on trying to listen for cues and just built on top of that conversation over and over again. Took every little thing that I gave him and just expanded it out as much as he possibly could. That's what I feel like the car is for now. It's like, it's a good time to really dive deep into just good conversations. Like Travis Griffin, who we had on the podcast before, and as well as I do, he loves talking about deep thoughts, and sometimes you get a little burnt out on it, but you're still listening to him. And he has these gems.
Oh, he does, yeah.
Where you're just, holy cow, I didn't even think about that. That is super smart. And I know that, and this is what makes him a really good dad, is that he'll have conversations with Alex, he'll have conversations with Emma, and just literally plow the way and helping them figure out like what they're doing. Mm-hmm. What did you notice about this kid? What did you know about that kid? What did you notice about the coach here? Just very curious types of conversations. And he's not talking about, hey, what can you get paid for? What does the world need? He's
getting to it.
He's getting to that. He's playing the long term. And the foundation that he's building right now is that his kids, they're gonna revert back to it by themselves as they keep going through life. So in their 20s, they'll go back to, okay, what do I want to do? They keep on asking themselves questions. They won't know that it's Ikigai, but they'll be asking the questions that are the right ones, and they'll try to find those solutions. Now, my Ikigai, I'm still trying to figure that thing out. Yeah. And it's a continuous process. And don't think that, I'm figuring, I got my Ikigai.
This isn't a 10-minute
No,
test.
It's not a 1 year thing. It's not a 2 year thing. This is a lifestyle. This is you continuously auditing yourself and really doing introspective stuff and just plowing the way of the next thing.
I just had a funny thought. Like, I'm 33 years old right now, and I think that I have certain things figured out, which I probably, as a 40-year-old, will look back at myself and be like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, you had no idea. But then I'm like, well, what would I have said at 18 if I would have asked myself that too? Like, it was that's the point.
You
right?
probably would have laughed Ikigai out of the room.
I'd have been like, dude, what is that weird word? Why are you?
You would make a
talking to
joke
me?
about it, and it would fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
You try to get laughs. You try to entertain
I
someone.
probably wasn't ready to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's what I always found interesting with Borgia, is that we'd have these like really deep thought conversations as a school. And obviously when you do that with a whole bunch of like 18-year-old boys, it's going to go in a totally bad direction.
But you know what? Then I say that, and what if like one of my idols, okay, like I obviously was a huge sports fan, right?
Yeah.
So what if Michael Jordan, one of my idols growing up, walked into a room where I was at, randomly said, hey, we're going to talk about this topic. I'd be like, yes, sir.
We're going to talk about Ikigai.
What do you love? I don't know. What do you love, Michael?
Can you jump in the air for
I would
me?
probably have that conversation. If he forced me down a deep rabbit hole, I'd have probably gone down that route.
It's going down a totally different route than I thought it was. Influencers are so important.
Yeah.
And like auditing your influencers and who you look at and what you're listening to is vitally important.
Mm-hmm.
When I always look at my YouTube feed, because I know YouTube's an algorithm and I know that it's feeding me what I keep on seeing, it's just a really good audit of, am I filling my life up with the right things, or am I watching reruns of SNL from like 1980?
Which isn't bad, but
By the way, my Mighty Ducks feed is like really strong right now. Like
I'm sure.
I've watched like 5
I'm
clips
sure.
where Gordon Bombay misses the post and he falls down.
So what do you think here? Like, let's put this into a real life example for some of our audience members, because I think if you're obviously one of our older audience members, maybe you're a parent of a player because you're listening to this podcast. I think this is a very easily applicable, situation. I think that probably as you're listening to this conversation, like I'd kind of put myself in those shoes. I'd start to think about what I'm currently doing with my life. And I'd start to say, okay, well, with these 4 things, am I fulfilling that, right? So I think it's easier from an adult standpoint. From a younger person standpoint, like I just said, as an 18-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, this is hard. This is the expectation of trying to put someone into this type of a thought process is, in my opinion, really tough. So how would you get there? Like, how would you approach this?
Treat it like a game. Well, first, I think everyone should go through the process. Even though you think that you know your Ikigai and you're like, Spike, I don't need this podcast.
Because right now we're talking about, like you said it at the start, what is your mission? Well, dude, when I'm 13, there's no way I'm thinking about what my mission in life is. I mean,
you're not there yet.
There's no way.
You're not there yet.
I have my brain hasn't even developed. Like, I haven't even figured out what the world is.
I feel like in high school you start figuring out what your mission is. At 17.
I disagree.
Well, I think there's a small percentage of people that can start thinking in that direction. Because you see, there's people that have, like, you'll have the activist in your class, you'll have the jock in your class, you'll have the person that is super motivated by politics, like who are someone who's really big into religion. Like you have those movements in there.
I'll put it this way. I've had a million recruiting meetings with players, and we always talk about, obviously I always go academics first when you're making a decision in terms of college. If college is for you, we go academics first. Out of 100 kids that I meet with their parents, 1 or 2 maybe can tell me, like, point blank right now, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to do this. I absolutely, no doubt in my mind, I'm going to go to these schools. I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to go into this field, and that's what I'm going to do.
Interesting.
Every other one of them, blank.
So they know what gets them into their flow state.
So yeah, they do. 1 or 2. Now.
So they only got like 1.
Yeah.
Technically.
Maybe. But then there's probably another 20 that, as we start having this conversation, okay, well, maybe you don't understand what degree you want or what field of study you're generally into. Have you ever thought about, like, let's reverse, science this. have you ever thought about like what type of jobs you might like to, do in the future, or what interests you, or what field, or like what do you like to read about, or what do you like to watch on TV, or anything like that? And we start kind of going down that conversation, and then we like reverse engineer back to the degree options, right? I get about 20 of those, right? So maybe now we've covered like 20-something% of kids. The other 75, I can ask that question till I'm blue in the face, and they'll look right back at me and be like, dude, isn't that what college is for?
Oof.
Isn't that what I'll figure out? It'll just come to me, right?
I think that's a really big misconception about college, is that college is meant to figure yourself out. Like
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I get the argument. I do get it. Like, you are figuring yourself out. Like, you're going to be going to class, you're going to be partying, you're going to be meeting all kinds of different people, and you're going to make different connections. Yeah, I totally see that. But what happens if you have a plan going in there, like kind of an idea and a thought, like, hey, what am I good at? What do I find really interesting? What is it that it gets me into my flow state where I'm just locked in?
I mean, you're going to save years of your life.
It's not even years of your life. You're going to save so much money.
Oh, for sure. I mean, so that's where I'm like, that's where this example, I think, if those 75% of kids, like, they don't know. And truth be told, I'm not even sure after college, if I'm looking at myself. Like, I started off at junior college because I played baseball in college. Mm-hmm. So I went there for baseball. Didn't go there for academics. I had no interest in it. Got an associate's degree in my 2 years there. Only played one because I got hurt. So I had 3 years left of baseball. So I was like, okay, well, now I got to go figure out a place to go play more baseball. And I remember, talking with someone, well, what are you interested in studying? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll be a teacher, or maybe I'll do this. I still had no idea.
Did you ever think about it? Or were you just like,
I thought about it all the time.
Are you just like a one-track mind? Were you just like, I'm playing baseball, I like girls, and I'm just doing school just to do school?
No. I wasn't. I don't think I was down that route. I obviously really liked baseball, and I wanted to keep playing it. I did always think about, like, because I had friends, right, that were going to school for, like I said, engineering, or they were, statistics majors, or they were into, whatever. Like, one of my best friends growing up, like, he went to the University of Kentucky and was a poli-sci major because he knew he was going to be a lawyer. He's a very successful lawyer today, but he knew that. And I was like, why can't I figure out what I want to do? Why? Like, why does Jeff know right now? Like, Jeff's his second year in Kentucky. Now I'm in my second year at Merrimack, and Jeff's got a path, and I don't. And I know I'm going to play baseball. I don't know what I'm going to do after that. Why can't I figure that out? And that bothered me, and I think there's a lot of kids like that. And like I said, truth be told, the only reason I went to Merrimack was because that was my first like offer. Like, I was in the middle of my senior year. Somewhat, I went to a pitching lesson. The Merrimack coach showed up because he had a relationship with my pitching coach. He said, hey, you can really pitch. You're tall. I like you. You want to come play? Here's an offer. I went down to, he was a middle school principal. Went down in the city, sat in his office. He gave the paperwork to me and my dad, and I said, sure, cool. I'm going to Merrimack. That was the only reason I went there. Only reason I went to Missouri S&T, D2 school, very well known for engineering, which I was not an engineer. I went and got a good business management degree. The reason I went there was my first offer out of Merrimack. I knew that I was up from an educational standpoint there. If I went another year there, I was going to waste money on classes that didn't apply to anything, even though, laughably, I had no idea what I wanted to study. Again, I went there because, well, it was an opportunity to continue to play.
Do you think you were open? Would you have been open to the conversation?
I'd have been open to anything, 100%, because the idea was in my head, right? So what am I meant to do? What am I supposed to do? And again, I went through that. So I played my next 3 years and got my undergrad degree there. And then again, the world hits you in the face. I moved back home. I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, dude, I didn't waste it. I have a lot of relationships that I built. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It was my path, right?
But college didn't figure out what you wanted to do.
No. And again, so for example, and I'm trying not to go down my life story, but now I get out of college, I'm like, okay, I do like business. Okay. I figured that out a little bit. I do like sports. Well, maybe I'll do something in that. Maybe I'll go work for the Cardinals or whatnot. Not having done any research to figure out what it takes. Where's your point of entry? Like, what type of jobs are out there? I just knew, okay, now I wanted to work in that. Okay. So then I tried. I started applying. I remember taking, funny enough, now that I pseudo work with Rawlings, right? I remember taking like a envelope package with my resume and a big written thing to the Rawlings headquarters, handed it off to the front desk employee, being like, please pass this along to someone. I'd really love to work here. That probably got thrown away.
Just think about like the guy, like,
Yeah.
and I was like, huh?
Why? Because my mom was like, well, be different. Go walk up there. I was like, okay, cool. And so I did. And
I mean, it's good advice. Yeah.
right, for sure. Then at that point, I still didn't really have a path. And ended up going to grad school because of that. Like, okay, now I eventually reverted back to my option was more school. Okay. Went and got a sports management degree. Now, funny enough, during that time, I started working part-time for Aaron, who runs the Tigers and owned Balls and Strikes at the time. And then it worked its way into it. And maybe that was what I was meant to do because I'm really passionate about what I do now. And obviously I get to help people and I get to be in business. I get to work in small business, work in sports and do that. But long story short, I never had this conversation myself. I never even had anyone necessarily approach me with it other than some of those general questions. Like, what do you want to do? What do you like? And then it kind of stopped. And I think there's so many people out there that when you ask those questions and then kind of don't follow up, or maybe even yourself, you don't follow up with yourself and really go deep into it and think about it. Again, it's not a waste of time. I didn't waste 5 years of my life, 6 years of my life. But I wonder,
Imagine if you would have.
what if I would have had a head start?
What happened? Imagine if you would have had those 4 questions. Like someone just presented those 4 questions early on, just very small. Like maybe it was one question when you were 10, another question when you were 13, another question when you were 15, and then 17, the final one, which is what could you do to get paid for?
Yeah,
Do you think that would have sped up everything?
I do. I'm obviously I love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm super happy I'm here. I'm happy I'm having this conversation, and it's and it's where I believe I'm meant to be. But having those types of conversations early would it definitely change things? I don't know how it couldn't. I don't know where it gets me to. I don't know if I was meant to do something different. But I think that at least those here's what I would have done. It would have given me more options. I had 0 options. Now,
The options were there
in my mind.
and the options were out there. You just couldn't see the
In
options.
my mind, it was the most blurry picture in the world.
It'd be like you walking into a brick wall room and everything's behind the brick wall and you can't see it.
Yeah, I
And
had
all you have to do is
no
climb
idea.
over the brick wall.
No idea how to climb over that wall. Just, I asked myself that question a million times, but I had no answers other than to continue to play baseball, to continue to be around the friends that I love, to continue to just keep my education going, which you get taught, and it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you get taught to continue to do that, right? But there was nothing else. There's no like pivot.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, you hear about these Fortune 500 company CEOs that didn't go to high school because they knew, right, or didn't go to college because they knew as a senior in high school that I can do this, this, and this, and I'm going to shape the world. I'm going to change it. I didn't know that.
Well, think about that investment. Like I could either spend highest
Well,
if you're in a
didn't know
really,
that
if you're
either.
if you're in a 1-tier college, you're maybe spending $200,000 at the
didn't know
total
that
end of
either.
it, and then someone could say, "All right, I'll just take a loan out for $200,000 and start a small business. That's my education, and I'm going to make money off of it."
Didn't either. Well, I mean, you might even go back to like when you're young, like having this conversation about what you're interested in. You know, like what if I was really interested in crafts, right? And that never got brought up, and then all of a sudden I never tried it, or I never went down that route because you're scared to start something new, or it looks different, or maybe the outside world says, well, you're weird for doing that, and so I don't do it. And
because it's not a guy thing,
right? And then all of a sudden, well, I could have been.
You could have been.
No,
you could have been the king of Etsy.
I mean, I don't know, right?
I'm just picturing like you just selling like arts and crafts on Etsy.
Come and shop with Dave. But no, I mean, you don't know, right? So I think the whole purpose of Ikigai is to find those things out. And it's a constant talk with yourself. It's a constant questioning. And because, again, I'm a totally different person now than I was when I was 18 or 21 making those decisions. Like, just the way I think about, the way I see the world, the way I talk, it's different. And I'm sure when I'm 45, it's going to be different then too. Situations change. And
well, think about the influencers that we follow. You said this the other day. He's like, have you noticed that every person that we listen to, every single dude, even the people that we bring on, are reading?
Yeah, it was kind of like I like to read, but I am very bad about finding time to do it and sticking it through. And I brought this up to Spiker. I was like, I'm big into learning, and obviously I preach this on the podcast. So I'm kind of like what's the word there? I'm kind of like, I say it, but then I don't do it type of guy at times. But I noticed that when we're talking to high achievers like Sahil and like, Brandon Majorowski and guys of that nature, and then the podcast guys that me and you share and talk about, they're always reading books, they're always learning, they're always looking for that next thing. And so I'm like, right now, Brian Fitzmaurice gave us a book.
Brian reads, man.
Yeah, a ton.
High earners and people of influence
constantly are reading, and they'll read books that are not necessarily in their category.
Yeah.
It could be things that are obscure. Like it could be, I want to know more about Ikigai, and they read a book about Ikigai.
Just because they're intellectually curious, like Sahil said, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a dynamite drop in there.
Yeah, and so like literally, Brian gave us this book, and I am dead set that I have to finish this. Like, I'm not going to stop in the middle of a book like I've done a million times. I'm going to finish it because I have to. Now, maybe I get a cool idea out of it. I've gotten several already, but maybe that's something that applies to Ikigai or this situation that we're talking about. And situations change. You never know. You never know what's going to all of a sudden pop up in your head and be like, whoa, now I look at this whole thing differently.
Or you could be showering and all of a sudden you're like, where did that idea come from?
Yeah.
It could have been the book that you read 2 months ago, and your brain just automatically brings it out of nowhere.
Yeah. And it's the cool thing about this is, like, I'm sure people are listening and they're like, man, I don't even get in the least, I don't get where Dave's coming from, because I think about it totally differently. I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, it kind of sounds stupid. Like, I'm sure that's the thought, right?
Well, I mean, I guarantee you when I said the word in the beginning of the podcast, I bet you there was a group of people that just said, what is this?
Right.
This is dumb. And then you probably had a group of people that said, ooh, that's curious. What does this word mean?
Right.
And then you probably had another group like, let's see what happens. Let's listen to the podcast.
But what I find really fascinating about this conversation and this topic is that if you had like a device that allowed you to go into the brains and just sit in a chair and listen, like if the brain could talk
in the metaverse.
Yeah, oh, there you go. I knew you were coming back to that. But if you could literally, if there was a device where you could just go listen in on someone's thoughts, I bet you if you had 10 people, you would have 10 incredibly diverse conversations going on, which is really cool because that's what makes this whole thing, the world, special, and why, there are different thinkers out there. People look at this world so differently. And if you can kind of dive into this topic a little bit on your own and then have a conversation with someone on this, and like you're having with your wife, imagine where that goes. That's what I think is kind of cool. And if we can do this at a young age, like if we can, some of my favorite conversations with the athletes that we coach and work with are not about baseball. They're not. It's not even about, what you're doing in the present. It's kind of like, what do you want out of this? Why are you here?
Well, I mean, even the game could be, I just want to have fun. Great. That's why we're here for.
Glad.
We want you to have fun. I want to have an awesome summer. That's what a lot of people don't think about when I think a lot of clubs get this wrong. Is that, and this is what I liked about Disney's Mighty Ducks was
4th reference on that today.
I'm not even getting paid for that, which is crazy. Just absolute plugging into the Mighty Ducks new Disney series. The mom freaks out on the ice, and she's like, "What's wrong with all you guys? Susan, I don't even know what the character's name is, but Susan, you brought a psychologist to the hockey practice. What are we thinking here?" And it's true. It's like, well, the whole point is to get to college. That's not the whole point. Mm-hmm. That is, if you are in this just for college, that's not the point. Yes. Is that a benefit? Is that a result that could possibly happen? Yes. Is it something that would be awesome?
100%.
Of course. That'd be freaking sweet if they were going to the University of Tennessee or Ole Miss or UCM, Missouri Southern, and they're getting their school paid for. But that's not the primary goal.
Yeah, I've always said this, and I'll stick by this because I think it's something. It's the reason I'm in it. It's the reason I started to be in it, in this job, in this business. Do I celebrate the kid who commits to Mizzou or Stanford? 100%.
100%. I'm gonna post that up on Twitter.
That's great. That is something that we can help out with. Do I celebrate the kid who makes his freshman team? Who maybe didn't if he didn't, work his tail off with our program in the offseason. 100%. I celebrate it the same way. Do I celebrate the trophy that we win in a 12U tournament on the weekend? Yes. Do I celebrate the first time learning a game, like maybe the player you had yesterday?
Awesome.
That is amazing. Do I celebrate the conversations that I get to have and the way that maybe you never know what that one sentence might do for a kid that you say? Because I remember so many things from my childhood that these people have no idea the impact they had on my life, but I remember it. Do I celebrate that? 100%.
Well, think about Dylan Dix. I ran into him at Club Fitness, and that guy is in Logan Chiropractic School. That is not easy to do, and the guy is in chiropractic school, stopped playing baseball, went to be a chiropractor, and he's almost done. What did I say when I first came in? I was like, I ran into Dylan Dix. Guess what he's doing?
It's awesome.
He's going to be a chiropractor. What did you say? Awesome. It wasn't like, nah.
No, it's fantastic. And again, it's all relative, and every situation can add some benefit to someone's experience in life. I think the key word is experience. It's like, I believe what we do, whether it's in the form of coaching, in the form of teaching, in the form of podcasts, or whatever we do, right? The end goal is to create a positive experience, whether that's through learning, whether that's through achieving, whatever it might be. It's creating that experience. I think that's the goal. And so this, going full circle, what is Ikigai? You said it's a mission. I say it's about creating a better experience for yourself in a certain way, at least in my mind.
It's your reason for being. And that's what is awesome about experiences, that you could have so many people in the club that are trying to have a single goal, right? Like, oh, I just want to have fun. Oh, I just want to play with my friends. Oh, I want to go play college. Oh, I want to do this. And the reason that we create content around recruiting in college is that we're not forcing you to do that. We're giving you options in case you do want to do that, because we are experts in that area. We have gotten people into college. So what are we going to do? We are going to help and provide resources on that. That doesn't mean that we're just all serious of like, this is a job, this is skill, this is work, you're just going to have to run through a wall to get to college. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but that's not the main purpose of the game. My whole mission for when when I started doing this was to get as many people to adopt the game as possible, because I think it's the greatest game in the world, and it's going to help you figure out what you want to do, and it'll provide life skills so that you're able to execute those in your Ikigai. That's the main thing. Now, we didn't go through the whole Venn diagram. We've gotten to what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for. That's pretty general. Like there's no gray area there. It's very black and white. But what the world needs is very gray. And each person is going to view the world completely different. And that's something that you need to figure out. What can you provide to the world where it's needed? And a couple examples, as Shandi and I were going through on what the world needs, the first thing that she said is authenticity. We need more real people, not fake people, not people that are going to go out there and just be Instagram influencers, like the bad Instagram influencers where they show off the shiny boat, they rent a Lambo and take a picture with it, but in reality they live in a apartment that the rent's like $200 a month.
Right.
So that's something that she identified as she's been going through with her Ikigai, and she's trying to figure out, okay, how can I present authenticity? How can I present being real? And she's still trying to get after her other 3 circles. Now, in the inner part of the Ikigai is obviously Ikigai, but on the outskirts of that, where the circles cross section, you have passion, mission, vocation, and profession. This means that you have part of the circles. You might have 2 of the circles, you might have 3 of the circles, but you don't have all 4, which gets you into the middle.
That means it's like, for example, it's, if you combine, okay, I found out what I love and I found out what I'm really good at, well, that's my passion. If I found out what I love,
but you're not getting paid for it.
But I'm not getting paid for it.
That's the huge thing, which then becomes,
that's not a profession.
And that could be labeled as a hobby.
Correct. Then let's say I find out, okay, well, what can I get paid for? And I found out what I'm good at. That's a profession, right? But it's not my mission.
So basically,
maybe I don't like it.
So basically, you're literally going to work every single day, 9 to 5. It could be a 9 to 5 job. It could be another job where you're just dreading to walk in to that thing.
Yeah, it's the Colby Rasmus.
Yeah, like
right?
you could be getting paid $500K.
He was making millions.
He was making millions. He's just like, I don't want to be in this.
He literally said, "Well, I'm good at it.
I'm good at it.
Obviously,
I can gain more skills out of it.
I'm good enough to get paid.
I'm gonna do bare minimum.
Good enough to get paid. And then what? Let's say, well, okay, I can get paid for this, and the world needs it, but I don't love it. So that's my vocation, right? But it's not my mission. It's not my passion.
A good example of vocation is a college professor that's not gaining more skills.
That just sits there.
Yeah, just sits there, just does the same lecture every year, no adjustments. That's all they do.
Mm-hmm. Then last thing, what I love and what the world needs is my mission. But am I good at it?
Yeah.
It could be my mission. I could be terrible at it. So I'm not going to get paid.
And I mean, a mission could be the world needs more trees and you plant trees. I mean, but you might not be getting paid for it. It's a good cause. Definitely go down that route. Mm-hmm. And again, there's going to be things in your life. This is one thing that's very interesting about this Venn diagram, is that there's going to be things in your life where you do have a mission, you do have a passion, you do have a profession, you do have a vocation, and they're little side things, right? But what's that one thing that you could always go back to and be like, that's my thing. That's my reason for being. That's what gets me up every single day. The thing that gets me up every day is I get to create. I get to jump on my computer. I get to edit a podcast. I get to edit a drill and send it out to the world and educate and entertain people.
And the coolest part of what, the world we live in today, 25, 30 years ago, there were professions. There were things that you're going to go into these categories. But now you can create a job and an area for yourself around your passion.
In whatever you want.
In whatever. It it is happening every day, every single day.
This reminds me of, so one of Shandi's friends, Mara, she's addicted to like corgis, the dog.
Oh, okay. I was like,
She loves corgis. Like if you know what Dogecoin is, that's like the corgis on top of the a spaceship and flying off.
Yeah.
Thanks to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But she follows these accounts that are all about corgis, and these people are getting paid.
Oh,
I think there's a podcast on corgis.
I'm sure.
I think 100%. Like I don't know how you can talk about corgis for.
It's your passion. Not my passion.
Like you be digging out of like crazy areas of just like history of corgis, the food of corgis, how to maintain a corgi, but it's out there. So like if you have a passion for something, and that's what's beautiful about the internet, and that's what's beautiful about, and it goes back to our metaverse, the things that are coming down the pipeline, the tech that's going to be built in the next 5 years.
It's not even, it's tech as a piece, but it's the open-mindedness to being able to do whatever you want.
And you
as
weren't
long
able
as
to-
you're good at it, and as long as you provide a service, and as long as the world needs it and wants it, you can do anything.
And it was a lot harder 10 years ago, 20 years ago,
sure.
30 years ago to think it this way, because the opportunity, you were literally boxed in with brick wall all around you. Now it's not a brick wall. I'm going back to my reference. It's a garden wall, and you can actually pull the leaves across and be like, oh, that's a cool area. I might go over there.
It's literally, you hear it all the time, but it's yours for the taking. If you want it and you can create it and you're good at it and you love it, and then there's a need, there's so much opportunity. Like it's silly. It's silly how much opportunity is out there, and there's there is a little bit less of judgment, I feel like, nowadays for people those creatives, those people who want to go down a different route. And I think it's only going to get more accepted. And again, it just goes back to having those questions with yourself, having those conversations, having those topics be brought up, and really just being like, hey, if you're passionate about it, go see how you can help.
The TED Talk, his name is Tim Tamashiro.
Wow, we found that out 40 minutes later.
I think I mispronounced it too. But if you want to listen to his TED Talk, it just was awesome. If you want to read on Ikigai, you can follow Sahil Bloom.
Yeah. Great follow. Please give that podcast a listen. That was really good.
Yeah. He has a whole written out thread on what it meant to him, and kind of how he's been using it in his life. So what's your closing pitch on this?
Well, I mean, this is a concept that's new to me, but it's not new to me. It's a concept that probably is not new. Maybe the term is new to most people who are listening, but the concept isn't, because I think these are internal questions that maybe you ask yourself randomly throughout your life. And I'm telling you, even as a young kid, you do think about this. Like, again, we say it, okay, they're kids, they're 12 years old. And yes, vast majority of their attention is spent on the now, the present, the what am I going to do next? Okay. But there are times, because I can tell you what I thought, you would look at the future. You would look at something on TV and you'd be like, could I do that? Is that me? Is that what I'm passionate about? No. Nah. Yeah. Okay. And so just having those constant, what you call audits, I just call like reality checks, or just constant conversations with yourself to where you're figuring that out. Maybe you don't figure it out that day, but keep having that conversation. Parents and players and friends, keep being willing to have that conversation with people, because it's only going to ultimately help. And maybe you unlock something on yourself by having a conversation with someone else. You have no idea. So, yeah, was I not aware of what Ikigai was? Sure, I didn't know that this Venn-diagram existed until 3 days ago when Sahil put it out there. But I did know these questions were out there. I didn't know they all came together. I did know they were there. So kind of have that conversation, think about those things, and you'll, maybe not today you figure it out, but maybe you do. And then what I talked about earlier, if you are lucky enough to figure out exactly how to fit these 4 topics into a perfect world, Imagine the experience and happiness that you're going to get out of it.
The value of this Venn diagram is that it's a compass. It's literally a compass to what you can do. And that compass can take me either to Greece, it could take me to Italy, it could take me to New York, and I'm going to continually use that compass. I'm not going to throw that compass away. So view it like that, like you're in the 1500s and you're using a compass to sail the seas, and you're not going to throw that thing away. You're going to continually use it. Like, oh, I went north. Now I don't need this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's the value of asking those 4 questions and putting them in the actual way that this diagram puts it in.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to show you a map of who you are. And it literally goes across the whole population. That's what's very fascinating about it. It's not just for Jerry or Susan. It's literally for everyone, and being able just to knock it out slowly instead of rushing through it and then just throwing it away. Continually thinking about those 4 different questions is very important.
Last thing I'll say, imagine the leg up that you would have on the rest of your, because we do talk about competition here. Imagine the leg up that you have on those people just by going down this route and thinking.
100%.
It's a huge, huge competitive advantage. That if you're willing to overlook the different sounding word, Ikigai, obviously you're not going to go talk to your friends. What did you do today? I really thought about Ikigai.
Yeah, like I can just see that they go out to a bar or something.
Yeah,
and
like, dude, okay, we're not friends anymore.
Like, have you ever heard about Ikigai?
Yeah,
okay. Dude, Tim's messed up.
Yeah. Like, again, I totally get it, but if you kind of deep dive into it, the competitive advantages that are out there to be gained are huge.
Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. My name's Spiker Helms. Across from me is David Birkby. Please like this video if you are on YouTube. We have changed. I keep on going back and forth. This is my issue. I keep on going back and forth. Should I put the podcast on the Rawlings Tigers YouTube channel, or should I put it on the Starter Closing Pitch YouTube channel? I am moving forward without a doubt. You can mark this episode. If I start switching up, you can call me and say BS. But we are going to be pushing all of our content, video format, Closing Pitch on the Closing Pitch YouTube channel. So if you want to see Dave's pretty face and his PGA, Under Armour, polo, please go ahead and subscribe to that channel. You can also subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast. Follow us on Spotify. I don't think anyone uses Google Podcasts. I think that's just dying.
There's like that one person out there. I look at the analytics. There's still one.
You know what?
So thanks.
We should bring that person on and just ask them, like, "Hey, what's Google Podcasts like? Like, why do you use that?
Get
like,
that less than 1%.
We use a podcasting app called Anchor. You can send in an audio. We have not gotten an audio since literally starting this. I don't think people download it because it's the only thing that it does is it allows us to upload and it goes to all different platforms. But they do have like a cool feature where you can actually send an audio wave. So if you ever get like the inkling or itch and you're like, I want to hear my voice on the Closing Pitch, go ahead and go download that app and then send us a audio wave. But anyways, thanks guys. We really appreciate you. It's just been awesome so far doing this podcast. We also have the Tiger interview series on our other channel. If you want to learn more about player development and baseball and softball, it's more on the player development side. So feel free to go over there, subscribe there, give us a rating, and we will talk to you later.
See you guys.
Thank you for watching or listening or both to The Closing Pitch. If you would like to get your closing pitch featured on the show, we use a podcasting app called Anchor where you can submit your statement or question via audio, or what you can do is comment in the comment section of this post. We also accept direct messages. Please give us the A-OK if you do send us a DM to use your statement or question on the show. Last thing, please give us a review on your platform of choice, 5-star preferably, and we value your opinion, and this allows us to reach more people. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.